essentially, similar to like the ACLU, but constitutionally focused. His organization has taken on high-profile cases. Dan was just talking about the Second Amendment first. The Silent Majority Foundation is probably best known for taking on some high-profile cases in defense of gun rights. Second Amendment in the federal Constitution, Article 1, Section 24 of the state Constitution. They've also done some First Amendment cases. They took the case of the woman professor at Washington State University who spoke critically about COVID shots and was basically fired from her position for doing that. And they are representing her in a First Amendment case. I mean, that's what universities are supposed to be for, right? I mean, different ideas, an open forum for testing things. And so Pete is a good man. He's been all around the state and has been on the campaign trail working aggressively. He's got a tough race too, though. His opponent is a fellow by the name of Brown, who was a U.S. attorney in Seattle for Joe Biden, and is probably better known for being on the television show Survivor for part of a season. He is, many of the far-left Democrats here in the state think that Brown is the next Obama. He is similar to Barack Obama in many ways, sort of well-spoken, charismatic guy. Comes across as kind of moderate, but the policies are very far left. So we'll see what happens there, but Pete Serrano is the candidate that we like for State Attorney General. Moving on down, we get to some of the other statewide executive positions, and these are races that are important statewide. In our state, in Washington, we elect a lot of statewide executive positions that in other states are appointed by whoever the governor is. For example, in our state, we elect the school superintendent, the state school superintendent. In many states, that position is appointed by the governor. And in fact, in our state, there's a movement afoot to change the school superintendent from an elected position to an appointed position. And that's something that I am adamantly opposed to, and I think many Republicans don't like it. We like the idea of a separately elected school superintendent. Our candidate in that race is David Olson, whom some of you may know. He's also been on the circuit, working the campaign trail. Olson is a school board member currently in the Key Peninsula School District in Pierce County. So again, it's kind of the Gig Harbor area, that general vicinity. He's been the president of that school board for a number of years. He's part of that growing group within WASDA, the Washington Association of School Directors. That's the statewide school board member organization. They have a growing conservative caucus within WASDA, and they operate kind of in a parliamentary way, like a caucus in the parliamentary body. And that conservative caucus is growing, and Olson was one of the first members of it. He is probably best known in policy circles for championing, and his school board up there in Pierce County did it, the policy of kids can't have their cell phones in the classroom. They have to check them into like a cubby or a purse pocket, something. They can have it between classes and at lunch and stuff, but they can't have it in the classroom. They were the first, I believe the first, or one of the first school districts in Washington that put that policy in place, and their test numbers went up very quickly. And now others are copying it. The incumbent school superintendent has copied it and is trying to claim that it was his idea, which it wasn't. The incumbent school superintendent, whose name I don't even want to say, has been in the job for 8 years, and during those 8 years, the performance of our state schools has plummeted. 10 years ago, our states were ranked in the top three, or I'm sorry, our schools were ranked in the top three of schools in the states around the country. The last ranking, we were 27th. I mean, which isn't the bottom, but it's closer to bottom than the top. Our school performance by any metric has fallen, and the incumbent school superintendent should carry the responsibility for that and be held accountable for that. So David Olson for school superintendent. Other positions that are statewide executive branch are critical to different things. We've talked already quite a bit about elections. I want to talk now about the state Secretary of State. At the state level, the Secretary of State is not like at the federal level, where Secretary of State is appointed by the governor or by the president, and it handles foreign policy. In the state, the Secretary of State is separately elected and has several responsibilities, but kind of the key responsibility is that coordinating those 39 county elections. Our state Secretary of State is in charge of overseeing elections in Washington. And we have our candidate for Secretary of State here tonight, Dale Whitaker, who is really carved out in a short amount of time a very good and recognized profile as someone who wants to reform how elections are done in Washington. So for a few minutes to talk about elections in Washington, Dale Whitaker.
How are we doing?
Good.
So, who watched my debate last night? There we go. I actually did debate last night. Someone said that I looked like J.D. Vance, so that was a gotcha question. So, I actually did debate last night with Steve Hobbs, but first, my name is Dale Whitaker. I'm running for Secretary of State. I'm actually British. I moved here in 2008 and became a legal citizen in 2015. And I'm a proud American. I absolutely love this country. I came here for a better life and, was fortunate enough to have lived the American dream. And I believe it's still alive. Through hard work, grit, and determination, you can still have the American dream. And I'm proud of this country, and I want to give my all, and that's why I'm running for Secretary of State. So to touch on my debate last night, I won't take too much of your time. Steve Hobbs and I were debating in Edmonds, and we got a lot of benign questions, the typical, are you an election denier? Of course I'm not. What are you going to do about elections and so on? But what was really critical, there's a couple things, Jim touched on this earlier. So Steve Hobbs illegally removed the 30-day residency requirement from our voter registration forms through a consent decree, which, thanks to Jim, the lawsuit is active and that is being challenged. What was interesting is last night, I kept hammering Secretary Hobbs on this issue. You illegally, as an executive of this state, subverted the will of the people and our Constitution, and you do not have the right as an executive to bypass the Constitution and the people of this state to do what you want just because you think it shouldn't exist. Well, Steve got a little flustered and he admitted on camera that he wanted it gone. So he can't just say now, which is what he's been saying, is, well, the judge ordered a consent decree and, hey, there's nothing I can do. No, he said he wanted the 30-day residency requirement gone. He actively, like I had said in the debate, and I'm saying now, and I will continue saying, he actively, one, broke the law, violated the Constitution, and violated his oath of office. He is not fit for that office or to serve anyone in Washington. So now we have him on record admitting that he violated the Constitution, admitting that he used his executive authority to break the law. I mean, it's cut and dry. He broke the law. The second thing that we talked about is logical AI. Steve Hobbs contracted with a foreign intelligence firm to surveil people on social media, not just social media, but news websites and their comments. What happens is they go in, they scout them, they look for mis and disinformation and emerging election narratives, and I'm doing this very hard because it's BS. We live in a free country that has a First Amendment, and that has to be safeguarded at all costs. I come from a country that does not have the First Amendment, and you get into a slippery slope. There's 3,000 cases a year of quote-unquote hate speech. The question becomes, who becomes the arbiter of truth and who decides what is and isn't hate speech, right? That is a dangerous path for us in America to go down. They talk about defending democracy. Well, defending of democracy starts with defending our Constitution and electing folks who want to go into executive leadership to actually uphold their oath of office, uphold the Constitution, and serve the people. And that's what I'm going to do as Secretary of State. The point being that I'm making about Logically AI is Secretary Hobbs likes to talk about mis and disinformation. He goes on and on about mis and disinformation. Well, Secretary Hobbs told a CNN reporter, a national CNN reporter, and a reporter from the Spokesman Review that I denied the 2020 election. I have never denied the 2020 election. Nowhere on record will you ever see it. I don't believe it. I have not denied the 2020 election. I had a reporter call me from the Spokesman Review, and we were wondering, well, who's saying this? Because it's just not true. She called me, and when I asked her, she said, well, what do you say about those who call you an election denier? I said, well, who are those that you speak of that call me an election denier? She went dead silent for about 10 seconds, and she goes, Secretary Hobbs, like really quickly, like she didn't want to say it. And I said, well, that's interesting. So did you ask Secretary Hobbs to cite his source on that? And they said, no. And I said, well, I would encourage you to go back to Secretary Hobbs and ask him to cite his source. The article comes out 3 weeks later, no mention of election denying. Right? The guy who's talking about mis and disinformation is actively sowing it. Again, another thing that I called him out on yesterday during the debate. The third thing, and I think that's more important, is, Secretary Hobbs likes to talk about disenfranchisement of voters. It's all he went on about last night. Disinformation, Russia, China, and disenfranchisement of voters. Well, it's funny to me that, who remembers having to check the party declaration box on the outside of your ballot in the presidential primary? Well, what if I told you over 40,000 people returned their ballot but didn't check the box? Do you know what happened to their vote? It's thrown out. It's thrown out. That is disenfranchisement of the voter because he has the authority to change the whack and move the box. He had that authority and he didn't do it. So the other question that was asked last night was, do you favor going back to in-person voting? Well, the answer is simple. To not allow people to vote in the way that is preferable to them, you're disenfranchising voters. Secretary Hobbs, by not allowing people to show up and vote in person, is disenfranchising voters across Washington State. 40,000 of whom we know would show up and vote in person because they don't want people to know their party affiliation. They would have shown up in person, they would have cast their vote, and they would have done it in private. By the way, you have the right to privacy of your vote in Washington State. You have that right. They subvert that right and they disenfranchise voters and they open voters up, by the way, to the political targeting that he claims is such an issue. And now, don't get me wrong. No person working in an elections office, no political candidates, no PCOs, and no one should be a target of or should be perpetrating any type of political violence. We absolutely all can agree on that, right? We all can agree on that. However, he actively does things to undermine the voters of Washington State. So, a couple things. First, we have the lawsuit challenging the 30-day residency requirement. But what would be a heck of a lot easier is if you guys just send me to Olympia. I'll reverse the whack that he changed, and I'll let that third party re-sue me and we'll defend it successfully in court. Second, we'll create the enforcement actions we need to ensure that the counties are actually cleaning their voter rolls, and we'll implement systems to ensure that we're cleaning our voter rolls consistently. And third, no dead people, no transient voting.
That's right.
And third, we will tear up the Logically AI contract because as American citizens, we are afforded liberty, and liberty is not when your government is surveilling you.
Here, here.
Say again? Eric? There's actually, I haven't dived too much into it, but there's a lawsuit that was sent to me today challenging Eric. I haven't gotten too much into it, so I'm going to look into that a little more. But Secretary Hobbs, from what I understand, is actually already backing out of Eric. Correct me if I'm wrong, he is backing out of it. And what's funny is, yesterday in the debate, he cited Eric as a good source to cross-reference with other states' voter rolls. But he's actively backing out of it. It's like, it's not good. I missed an opportunity there, I will admit, in the debate. I didn't hit him back on that. But for those that want to go and watch that debate, I will gladly send you the link. You can just shoot me a text and I'll gladly send you guys the link. It's worth watching because it really shows he has no leadership. He has no idea what he's doing. He's just there citing the same things that he was citing in 2022, that when he ran against Julie Anderson, everything's the same. Everything's mis and disinformation, everything's voter disenfranchisement and so on. He is saying the things and claiming that I'm doing the things that he is actually actively doing.
That's what Democrats do.
That's what Democrats do.
Yeah, right out of the playbook. But last night I hope I showed that we have an option and that the people of Washington State have an option. And what I really am hoping is that the independents that watch that debate will see that this isn't about election denialism, this isn't about mis and disinformation, this is about effective leadership and doing the right things and holding up your oath of office and making sure we're serving the people of Washington State, not dictating to them.
Yeah.
So again, my name is Dale Whitaker. I apologize, I do have to drive back to Spokane tonight. So I'm going to speak and dash, but my rack cards are on the back wall. On the bottom of that rack card is my campaign number. It goes directly to my cell phone. So the easiest thing to do is to text me, because I'm on the phone a lot, but to text me, and then when I can, I'll get back to you guys. And then anything that you guys can do to help send me to Olympia, we have a robust plan to get in front of those independent voters. So any financial capability you have, please, even if it's $5, if you think $5 doesn't help, it does. That gets us in front of 250 people in digital, okay? It helps. So if you got anything that you can give, please do. Again, thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Dale, I'll plug a little bit more his campaign strategy. He's very focused on digital advertising. So internet, streaming services, digital ads, and I think he's cutting edge in this way. I mean, a lot of people are using those digital ads these days, but his campaign is very focused on it, and anything you give him will help him get more of those digital ads out.